This guy who just wandered in is in one of the great comedy scenes of all time, just because he happened to waltz in, and we have the clip.
The Blazing Saddles, made by Warner Brothers in 1974, is widely considered to be one of the funniest movies of all time. Despite the Blazing Saddles' reputation for credible comedic relief, many are in the dark about some stunning truths about the band. This enigmatic film's riddle is about to be solved. Where were the producers' lips sealed? Then why did they keep this knowledge secret? Come investigate the details that the creators of Blazing Saddles attempted to conceal from the general audience. The spectacular opening night of the 1974 picture The Blazing Saddles is only one of many great things about the picture. As it happens, the premiere is up there with the most monumental film debuts ever. There are a lot of reasons why this debut ruined any hopes of success. Curiously, the 1974 occurrence became a local discussion after it had happened at the Pickwick Drive-In. You can't help but notice the lavish production values at a movie premiere. Of course, being a drive-in premiere, there would be a plethora of flashy, high-priced vehicles and other technological marvels on display. Surprisingly, that turned out not to be true. Instead, in keeping with the film's Western premise, famous people rode into the scene. Actually, access to the area was strictly limited to those on horseback. Participating speakers were affixed to saddle pommels for the duration of the event. The designers went over and above by also designing a chic hospitality bar, where visitors could savor horse-themed hors d'oeuvres. The fact that the event's host, filmmaker Mel Brooks, expressed gratitude to the publicist who had come up with the concept was a good indicator that it had been a success. The debut was a smashing success, but it was also the subject of several complaints. The film's screening was met with widespread disapproval, beginning with Warner Brothers chairman Ted Ashley. In the aftermath, Ashley wasted little time in sending a note to Brooks requesting the removal of several elements from the final product. Along with every other flatulent sound effect, the exclusion list contained every N-word that was used in the movie. According to Ashley, who told Brooks straight out, she had to get it all out. Attempting to deny the impact of this evaluation on Brooks would be dishonest. Nevertheless, Brooks steadfastly disregarded Ashley's message. Instead, he tossed the entire bunch into the trash after crumpling his message. He went on to say that he didn't edit anyone's sentences, words, or expressions when discussing his reaction to the situation later on. Because of his refusal, we owe the humorous Blazing Saddles to Brooks, who merits praise for this boldness or tenacity. Some strange things about Blazing Saddles seem unbelievable when put in context with the film's actual popularity. Incredibly, isn't that so? Check it out. Everyone who witnessed the iconic moment from Blazing Saddles couldn't help but chuckle. This is the same spot when a brazen Mongo and another horse rider had a fistfight after the latter had confronted the former for parking his horse in a prohibited area. Mongo delivered an epic reaction, albeit it could have been much greater. In response to the challenger, Mongo approaches the guy and his horse with great care, but he has ulterior motives. After this, Mongo plowed into the horse, bringing them tumbling to a stop. Some people didn't think the moment where Mongo clobbered a horse was humorous, even though most others thought it was hilarious. Those who were worried about the abuse of animals harshly criticized the scene. Although they had good points, Brooks had taken precautions to ensure that no animals were hurt when he staged the scene. This is due to the fact that all of the film's animals are well trained and taught to obey commands, hence no harm came to any of the animals involved despite their antics. Brooks might have utilized a less violent scenario that would not give the incorrect message to the public, according to the human rights advocate and people who were upset with it. Despite the filming of Blazing Saddles going according to plan, there is a great curveball at one point. People who watched the series from the start to finish would have noticed that the actor playing the role of the Waco Kid in the beginning of the film was different from the one who performed the role later on. Someone losing their job caused that to happen. Gig Young portrayed the role of the original Waco Kid. He gave a solid performance in the film's opening act, particularly in the scene where he hung numbly from his bed to scold Bart. Everyone who watched the scenario agreed that Gig Young was perfect as Waco Kid, but no one was expecting what came next. Gig Young was let go for actually being drunk, rather than simply pretending to be. He was unfortunate to lose his role to Gene Wilder, who became the Waco Kid very quickly. Being dissatisfied with the outcome, Young decided to sue the studio for violating their contract. Blazing Saddles was a hit, but this event proves that the actors had a lot of problems that the public doesn't need to know. Although there were issues caused by a few cast members for the other characters, like Brooks, were really invested in their parts. Slim Pickens is a perfect illustration of this type of cast member. In Blazing Saddles, Slim Pickens played a cowboy to the max, yet the picture is undeniably about cowboys. Slim Pickens, who played the role of Taggart, the violent gang leader, was serious about giving his all to the part. The actor had no choice but to sleep outside in order to fully immerse himself in the role of the cowboy. Furthermore, he endured all of this while carrying his Winchester, which served as a constant reminder of his criminal nature. That shows how admirable he is. The origins of the Blazing Saddles moniker are fascinating, and they contribute to the mystery surrounding the horse. An issue that arose during production was coming up with a good title for the movie. The situation was saved by several title proposals at that moment, although the most of them ended up unlocking. Originally, the picture was going to be called Tex X after Malcolm X, but that moniker was then discarded in favor of Black Bart, which was also deemed inappropriate. After this, The Purple Sage was considered as a possible title by the screenwriters. Nonetheless, it was in the bathroom, when Brooks was taking a shower, that the title of the picture was eventually decided. The title Blazing Saddles sprung into his head out of nowhere, and after consulting with his wife, she thought it was spot on. That is the origin of the charming moniker, Blazing Saddles. Taken together, these elements show that the film's naming process is still crucial to its final appearance. Blazing Saddles is a show that never fails to entertain. You find out that the inhabitants of the community do not like Sheriff Bart. One of the film's funniest parts highlights this point when Sheriff Bart has to threaten the townsfolk with a pistol to get them to release him. This funny sequence was really based on a real incident from Mel Brooks' youth, so it wasn't just a comedy. Brooks attempted shoplifting when he was a kid, attempting to make off with a pack of gum and a water cannon. He met his untimely demise when the storekeeper tried to intervene, resorting to brandishing the water pistol and threatening to fire it. Brooks should have known better, but that scene in Blazing Saddles. Some may view riding a horse as a return to a more innocent time in one's life. The Waco Kid inserted a line to comfort Bart at this juncture, stating, "You've got to remember that these are just simple farmers," which was clearly not in the script. These folks are native to the area. The common Western clay. Oh, you know what I mean? Complete dimwits. The ad-libbed moron had Cleavon Little in fits of real laughter. Looking at Blazing Saddles with his other amazing works, such as The Producers, and all the fascinating situations it captures, it is evident that Brooks is a gifted filmmaker. So the Warner Brothers had faith in Brooks's talents when he created an enchanting experience for spectators in Blazing Saddles, much like he did in The Producers. Whatever the case may be, Blazing Saddles required a more optimistic first impression. Neither the executives nor anybody else in the executive suite thought the film was hilarious. Although this did not bode well for Blazing Saddles, Brooks remained steadfast in his belief that the ranch would be successful. Warner Brothers eventually distributed the film, and given the classic's popularity, it was a brilliant decision. That the picture was almost scrapped before its premiere, for example, seems incredible. Persuading the company to distribute the film was a monumental task for Brooks. "This is just too obscene for the American people," says the head of distribution. After this, he suggested the studio cut their losses and ditch the project. John Calley, the president, listened to Brooks and the picture was finally released. However, in an effort to be cautious, It was first only issued in certain cities. Only in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles could the studio release the picture. Surprisingly, the film became a huge hit by the end of summer. The film's overall huge success also caused others who were skeptical to change their minds. Nobody should be surprised to hear that when Blazing Saddles was in production, it was far from Brooks' exclusive undertaking. In reality, Brooks was simultaneously overseeing the development of Your Show of Shows and Blazing Saddles as a screenwriter. The program wasn't born out of thin air. Rather, Brooks's experience in New York served as its inspiration. At the Vanguard nightclub, Brooks met the brilliant Richard Pryor on a crucial night during this period. After this meeting, Richard Pryor was immediately offered a position in the show by Brooks, and the idea of Your Show of Shows was born. Richard graciously accepted the invitation, and a stunning partnership was born. The show's popularity was reportedly due in large part to Pryor, who quickly had a major impact on the majority of Mongo's lines. No one can deny that Alex Karras, a pioneer in the world of football in addition to his acting career, gives a fantastic performance as Mongo, one of the film's most intriguing characters. After 12 productive seasons in the NFL, Alex Karras was named to the All-Pro squad 9 times. Really, he was a 4-time Pro Bowler and a member of the NFL's All-Decade squad from the 60s. How such a talented player ended up in the acting world is rather remarkable, isn't it? He opted to pursue acting once his time with the Detroit Lions came to an end. His most famous part was as the naive strongman Mongo, who did the dirty work for the evil Hedley Lamar. Even if Mongo was unable to remove Sheriff Bart from office, the creator of that character is very deserving of praise. Now we reach yet another major character from Blazing Saddles. There can be no doubt that Andrew Bergman was an integral part of Blazing Saddles' popularity. After Blazing Saddles came out, his works were quickly used for fresh content because of his significant involvement in the success of the picture. A television series called Black Bart was one of the major outcomes of his writings. April 4, 1975 was the air date of the pilot. It is worth noting that the episode featured Louis Gossett Jr. as Bart. Filming continued non-stop as per the terms of the contract, even though no one ever watched the show. In terms of the film's treatment of music, Blazing Saddles stands out. Because of Brooks, who dared to employ program music instead of the usual background music, this is all possible. Hiring Count Basie, widely regarded as one of the greatest band leaders of all time, was a brilliant decision that he executed to perfection. While filming April in Paris, Count Basie and his band were enlisted to play the score. Frankie Laine sung the film's theme song, which was composed by Brooks as part of his creative musical endeavors. Not everything has been sunshine and rainbows since Blazing Saddles came out, which is really pitiful. There were those problems that appeared out of nowhere for no apparent cause other than a similarity in name. True, the film's antagonist goes by the name Hedley Lamar, but it turns out that the real-life actress shares a striking resemblance. From the 1930s until the 1950s, the renowned actress was under contract with MGM. Hedley Lamar of Blazing Saddles even made light of the prospect of a lawsuit due to the similarities between the two names. That, however, became a reality very quickly. However, a settlement was eventually reached outside of court by both sides. It may be argued that the popularity of Blazing Saddles was somewhat influenced by the birth of a kid, rather than Brooks's skill as a screenwriter. Mel Brooks began working on the Blazing Saddles projects shortly after the birth of his son Max. He was more committed to the idea and wanted it to succeed after the birth of his son. Back then, he needed to have the picture made, but he didn't have much money. Even though he was reluctant to take on Blazing Saddles due to financial considerations, he couldn't help but feel like Charles Dickens when faced with the prospect of working on such a large project. Regardless, he unabashedly poured his heart and soul into the film. The intriguing incident where Blazing Saddles had an unannounced visitor that went unnoticed is mostly unknown to most people. The chase between Sheriff Bart and the Waco Kid took place on the film set's backlot. As planned, the race had sent everyone into a tailspin, and all eyes were on the right side of the track. There was, however, a single man who remained still at that same moment. He had stepped onto the set by mistake. However, he was granted permission to remain after being signed off. Anyone who has read Blazing Saddles is familiar with Lili von Shtupp. Madeline Kahn, who portrayed Lili von Shtupp in Blazing Saddles and was also cast in the film adaptation of Mame, played this role. She was let go from Mame the day before production for Blazing Saddles started, which is the twist here. A lot of people thought she had done poorly enough to lose her job at Mame, so she were able to zero in on Blazing Saddles, but it would be impossible to tell if this data was genuine. Once the producer's Broadway triumph is announced, Brooks is forced to speak publicly about Blazing Saddles and how it achieved such great success on Broadway. Even though he had a strategy, Brooks acknowledged that he was no longer certain that it would be successful. The writer of the screenplay doubted that his explicit content would find an audience or that he could get away with it, just like he had previously. He did, however, make it plain that he would not hesitate to attempt it. That Blazing Saddles was able to prosper is a testament to Brooks's choice. Mel Brooks, like everyone else who has achieved great success, had his moment of glory. The writer was brave enough to disregard humility and express his view about Blazing Saddles after the film's high acceptance. He even goes so far as to say that Blazing Saddles is funnier than other comedies like Some Like It Hot, based on his claim that it is the funniest film ever. While Billy Wilder's film is funny, Brooks claims it lacks the comedic punch of his own work when contrasted scene for scene. I feel bad saying this, but I think, when asked about Blazing Saddles, he boldly claimed that it could be the funniest movie of all time. Most people would be interested in this behind-the-scenes moment. Mel Brooks had already stated his intention to cast Madeline Kahn as Lili von Shtupp, but their meeting took a dramatic turn when Kahn showed up to read the part. She promptly accused Brooks of having malicious intent after he requested to view her legs. Kahn required good legs, though, because her role was a parody of Marlene Dietrich, as Brooks stated. With the stipulation that there be no physical contact, she consented after hearing this explanation. Considering how well-received Cleavon Little was as Sheriff Bart, it comes as a surprise that he wasn't the original casting option. Brooks thought Richard Pryor had the most natural skill. Thus, he was the first contender to run. Nevertheless, there were other obstacles that prevented Brooks from casting Richard Pryor in the part. The latter was allegedly dealing with substance misuse and a touch of vulgarity in his writings. Brooks still intended to cast him in the part despite the allegations, but the studio was against it and cast Cleavon Little instead. Nothing could stop Cleavon in the end, given how deftly he read the lines. Actors may be relied on to produce when portraying characters that significantly differ from their own personalities, since they understand that it is only acting. The instance of Burton Gilliam, who played Lyle, is a prime illustration that this is not always the case. In one scenario, Lyle, who was meant to be the villain's goon, had to insult Sheriff Bart's race. Little himself gave Gilliam the go-light to use such delicate words. "If I thought you would say those words to me in any other situation, we'd go to Fist City, but this is all fun." This scene was quite difficult for Gilliam, who struggled mightily with the moment and couldn't bring himself to use such sensitive language with Little. It's not important. Unfortunately, not every scenario that Brooks had planned never saw the light of day. Although Brooks wished he could have been more imaginative with comedic situations, he felt compelled to remove some of them. Despite his disapproval, Brooks was forced to remove the most explicit moments. Blazing Saddles almost didn't cast John Wayne, which is rather interesting. The inclusion of the renowned Western actor John Wayne was an attempt by Brooks to inject some fresh ideas into the Western spoof. While on Warner Brothers property, he met John by chance and wrote a brief character for Wayne. Wayne turned down the part, but he did say he'd be the first in line to watch the film when it came out. The fact that Brooks and the renowned Gene Wilder have worked together on The Producers for a long time is an exciting but little-known fact about their connection. Then Mel Brooks wanted Gene in Blazing Saddles, but Gene had a condition. He had to be the one to adapt a screenplay he was writing into a picture. Mel was on board, and the result was Young Frankenstein, a picture that was nominated for an Oscar. Working together in this way is evidence of the special relationship between Brooks and Wilder, as well as their creative cooperation. Everyone here thinks Blazing Saddles was a hit, but it's important to remember that Mel Brooks had to pull a lot of strings to get the job done. His meticulous word choice is one of them. He alludes to the legendary Cuban jazz musician Mongo Santa Maria. In order to keep Frankie Laine from changing the song, Mel also made sure to tell Frankie a white lie about the film being dramatic and not sarcastic. The popularity of the picture was largely due to all of these factors and more. The overall effect of the picture was enhanced by this deft combination of words and music and humorous achievement. The usage of the N-word in Blazing Saddles, a comedy notorious for its daring and divisive humor, sparked a great deal of controversy. Mel Brooks and the film's writers knew full well the dangers of using such language, yet they went ahead and used it nonetheless to tackle racism and prejudices directly. The incident that caused a stir was when Sheriff Bart, played by Cleavon Little, threatened to shoot himself in the head. He proceeds to face a gang of bigoted townies, shocking and disarming them with the racial insult. For Mel Brooks, humor had the potential to be a potent weapon in the fight against racism, and this moment served as a reflection on the era's ignorance and bigotry. But people's reactions to the racist insult were all over the map. While some lauded the film for boldly tackling racial issues, others criticized it for using harsh language. The scene's controversy has lasted long after the film's release, attesting to the film's influence on subsequent conversations about racism and comedy. A lot of people in the comedy industry consider Blazing Saddles to be a pioneering film. Influential are its scathing views on racism, boundary-pushing antics, and irreverent humor. Several actors, actresses, and directors throughout the years, a new age of controversial comedic films that dared to question established standards emerged after the film's commercial success and openness to controversial themes. Blazing Saddles' bold take on comedy served as an influence to comedians like Richard Pryor, who was considered for a part in the picture. Notable comedians like Eddie Murphy, Dave Chappelle, and Sacha Baron Cohen have all made groundbreaking social criticism and comedic contributions that reflect the influence of the film. Much obliged for your time. The link to another entertaining video is currently shown on your screen. Click on it to view it. We will meet again after this.